everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello, welcome to my bookish end of year wrap up. I am filming this a little early this year. It is currently December 23rd because the way that this year lands in the middle of a week with Christmas and uploads and like Fridays and stuff like that, I have to film this before I go to the lake because I'm going to be at the lake for the Christmas holidays, and I won't be able to upload a video, film or upload a video up there because the Wi-Fi is garbage. So I'm gonna get it done ahead of time. So we do have a little bit of time left, like 7-8 days left of the year to do some reading and get things done. So I will be reading more, 100%, than the amount of books that I have read so far this year. But that's okay because we can just talk about it because I've met my reading goal of 120 books this year, and we're just gonna go over it. And I'm currently reading a couple books. It's gonna be great. I got my computer here. She's having a freak out because she doesn't like me today. We're gonna open up Storygraph and we're gonna look at the stats of this year, the numbers. We're looking at my cop pile as well. We're just gonna get into it. We're gonna have a chat of the entire year. Anyways, all right, so in 2024, I have read 123 books so far this year. Look at that, amazing. And I am just about to hit my 50,000 page goal. I set 50,000 pages as my reading goal because I thought that it was gonna be easy because last year I read like 53,000 pages and stuff like that, but apparently this year I'm like 1,200 pages short. So will I reach that by the end of the year? We will see. I don't really mind that much. I just wanted to like set a goal because why not? I believe also, oh, that's right. I have a couple books that I have not yet filled in the ratings for. So let me go into my read recently spreads here. I did just finish The Fury of the Gods the other day, and it's gonna get a 4.5 star. And we also have Teller's Small Fortunes. It's gonna get a 4 star. This month so far has been very 4 and 4.5 star heavy. There has not been a single book that has landed outside of those two numbers, which is pretty great. We love that. My review of Hunger of the Gods has changed. It is going down to a 4.5 star, which is totally fine. I just, you know, it happens a lot when I'm more of a critical reader. A lot of these books that I'm just like blown away by, and then I reread them, I'm like, okay, it's not necessarily like a favorite book. It's so close though, because The Hunger of the Gods and The Shadow of the Gods and all that kind of stuff. This one also gets 4.5 stars, not 4 stars. So it's going up a little bit. That's fun. We love that. We love that. Anyways, so 2024 as a reading year has been quite interesting. We started out this year as a quite like upbeat, kind of very good reading year. In January and February, I was reading some of my like favorites of the year, some of my almost favorites, just banger books over and over and over and over again. So we love that. It kind of petered off into the latter half of the year of like really good banger books. Like sure, there were some, but for some reason it was just really top heavy this year. I also managed to find 2 brand new books that were like favorites of all time. If you guys have watched my favorites video, you know it's Empire of Exiles and Relics of Ruin by Erin Evans, which has been so incredible because I was asked to be part of the Writing About Dragons and Shit podcast to do a book club for Empire of Exiles with Erin Evans and Trevor Bettis. It has been so much fun. I am so happy that just being the little fangirl I am got me onto that podcast and could do things like that. And also like my writing journey and all that kind of stuff also got me onto the podcast for different reasons and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, reading year has been fantastic, has been very interesting. Here on my bullet journal, I wrote at the beginning of this year some different goals that we were gonna go over that I wanted to do. They were very general goals. Read 120 books. I have met that. I've read 123. I said shrink my 130 plus TBR. I have not. I think I have over 150 books on my TBR still, and that seems to be a pretty standard number throughout the year. Diversify my shelves and my reading and use my library more. I have definitely used my library more, actually. Hold on. There is a stat in here to see where I got my books from in my cop pile list. So I actually read 27.8% of my books through the library this year. It would be great to increase that statistic higher. I believe it says 37 books out of all 123 were from the library. 89 were owned, 4 were ARCs, 2 were from Scribd, and 1 was an ebook. I feel like that's a lie. There's more ebooks in there, but it's fine. It's fine. That is how we got it. So, you know what? Using the library is fantastic. And as I did last year when I did my pre-orders I did also go through and request the pre-orders that I wasn't necessarily like 100% certain that I wanted to own them. I went and got them through the library, either if they were in the library's catalog already or if I wanted to like request them to purchase it. I have yet to actually go through and request my library to purchase a bunch of books now, but I think I'll do that in the new year once I make sure that everything either is in their catalog or isn't, because sometimes they have them loitering there, and then I'll go and request a couple just to make sure that I have them through there. But I think it's also a great way to support the authors that way and also read the books that I'm interested in. So it's been a very interesting year. We've had definitely a mix of ratings and reviews, but let's go through my Storygraph stats as we go through here. We'll have a little scroll and we'll see kind of where things are at. I love that the biggest stat is adventurous for me because fantasy. Fantasy, right? Got adventurous. Dark is the second biggest stat, and then mysterious is the third, and then emotional is the fourth. Wow, okay. Fifth is tense. I thought I was reading like really lighthearted books this year. Apparently not. And then funny, and then lighthearted were there. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then all the other ones are just little. We've got only 3 slow-paced books. What are those? Mask of Mirrors, Dragons, and okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We got majority medium-paced and a few fast-paced. It's very rare I see fast-paced books actually on Storygraph, because books that I think are fast-paced or slow-paced usually are tagged as medium. So who knows about that one. This wheel is always very fun to see. My majority read is between 300 and 500 pages, which is very interesting because fantasy books are usually quite chunky, as is this value of 20 books that were over 500 pages. And then there were a bunch this year that were under 300 pages, which is fantastic. I was reading more novellas, I was reading shorter books this year, which is why my 50,000 page goal wasn't quite met, because I was reading a lot of shorter books this year. Fiction versus nonfiction, I've read 2 nonfiction books this year. I had a goal, like a sort of goal at the beginning of the year, to read more nonfiction. I wanted to read 1 a month, and that fell out after February because I just don't love nonfiction books. I find them so difficult to read. I will continue reading them and continue trying to get them onto my list, but they're so arduous to get through. Anyways, here are the genres broken down as of the Storygraph tags, which is very interesting because we have 74 fantasy tagged through here, and then we have a lot of queers tagged through here. Romance, science fiction, young adult. Did I read 15 young adult books? No way. That doesn't feel right at all. Age category. According to my compile, I've read 17 young adult, so I don't know where those books came from, but there we go. And then all of this other breakdown as well. Now this year I also used like personal tags through Storygraph, because you can create your tags on Storygraph, and I've tagged them to kind of just cover the books that I've been reading, especially the most important one, the BIPOC authors one. So according to Storygraph, I have completed 53 books written by BIPOC authors out of 123 books. And I believe the number is a little higher, 58, yes, because I have DNF'd a number of books this year, and a bunch of them were by BIPOC authors, unfortunately. But my statistics for yes versus no are 43% yes, they were BIPOC authors, and then 56% no. So again, I gotta get better at this stat. I have been trying every single month to make sure that my TBRs are balanced 50-50 at least. I do have 2 books on the go right now that are written by BIPOC authors. I have Fevered Star and The Principle of Moments, which Fevered Star is written by an Indigenous author, and then Principle of Moments is written by a Black author. So these 2 are gonna help bump that goal, and I do also hope to read Mirrored Heavens as well before the end of the year. So these are gonna bump the statistic just a touch, probably not enough, but it's going to do something, and I just need to do better next year as well. So there's that. But I wanted to bring up the tag specifically on Storygraph because I wanted to let you know that you could do that. You can tag your books specifically. And I've done them as so I can like track them year by year. So this year I've so far read 53, finished 53. And then below it I have read 7 arcs off of NetGalley, which is fantastic because usually I don't know how many arcs I read. And I've been trying to be better about reading the arcs off of NetGalley. I think I have 2 that I need to go in and review now after the fact. I just haven't reviewed them. I've been really bad at like filling out my book journal and my stats and stuff like that at the last half of the year. I've been so burnt out on it. And I think the reason was one of the goals that I had last year that I set up, which was to do the tracking physically in a book journal. And like the amount of effort that I put into this at the beginning of the year, I am so burnt out. I think we got to about July and it just started petering out with effort to the point of like, yeah, we got to the midpoint. And then, so this is everything before the midpoint and this is everything after, because I just got so tired of how I was doing it. And since then, I have barely done any writing on it. I don't think I've written my thoughts on any of these books. I've just put in the stats in and then like a brief summary. I did get all the little like cover thumbnails printed though, so that is finished and filled out. But once we get to like November and December, I've barely done anything other than just put the thumbnails down because I've lost all the energy to do it. And even like some of the beginning pages on this, like this pixel tracker, I have to go in every month and fill in the pages because I just forget to do it entirely. So I'm not going to do a pixel tracker next year. My book shelf, I have not filled in past The Lotus Empire, and I've read a number of books since then, so I got to do that and the list and stuff like that. So I've just been really burnt out on tracking my books because I think I went a little bit too hard at the beginning of the year. So I have I have plans for next year that are different. So we're kind of going to go backwards into what I was doing last year, but we're still keeping like 2 separate bullet journals. One for my, like, I keep one for my like planner for like, you know, everything else going on in my life. Like we have my work lists and stuff like that. And then I had some stuff at the beginning of this book that I also did not complete or finish, like the pixel trackers in here. Barely went past June with them, but I did have a couple pages that I really enjoyed, like doing the highlights of 2024. This is the first half of the year. It's all little pictures that I printed out, and then I just got a bunch more printed out for this half, and I have just a little bit left in case I want to do like Christmas and New Year's if anything like really fun happens. I think so, because I have my friends over for Christmas. I got to get that picture printed, and then I'm going to my friend Sophie's and Tamsin's for New Year's. So this is like a very like personal planner kind of a thing. And then I have plans, let me get it. Next year, I have plans to do my book journaling in this specific book journal, which is from Illumicrate, I believe. This was in one of their book boxes, and I remember seeing it, falling so in love with it. And then because I'm in Canada and we don't have anything like Pango Books or anything, my friend Allie from the States found it on Pango Books and bought it for me along with a couple other things. But like this was the main goal, and like it came with like a computer pad, which I'm in love with and I use like every day at work. But this is what I'm going to be doing for next year because it is all laid out for me already. I don't have to do anything if I don't want to. It has book of the month type situation. Anyways, this is the plan for next year to kind of follow along. There is one page in here, which is the Illumicrate reading challenge. I'm gonna probably fill this in with something else that I do, which is like one of my regular spreads that I will miss in here. But this is so nicely laid out, and there's so much space and room to work with this. So I'm excited to get into this in 2025. And then the color for 2025's regular journal is gonna be purple. This is the wrong journal though. I ordered on accident a blank one. So I'm waiting for my dotted one to come in the mail, but it's gonna be purple. It's gonna be purple. I was going to forego this year, and then I was like, no, I gotta keep my standard Lloydstrom journals. I got to, because I've been doing it for a number of years now, and I just have to keep them going. And I love the 120 GSM ones. They're the best. No bleeding, best paper thickness. I love them so much. Anyways, that's the tracking situation this coming year. And I'm going to continue doing my cop-out spreadsheet, which I get through G from Book Roast. If she's doing a new one this year, I don't know. If she doesn't, I'm just going to grab the version from last year and do that again because I liked it so much. Love her cop-out spreadsheets so deeply, and they're free, which is the best. I'm going through Storygraph and Goodreads as well, which I just keep doing. Just keep doing. Just keep it on. Anyways, next up here we have format, which I did explain in my previous one of these videos. I went and watched that this morning just to see what kind of content I talk about in these videos because it's been a year. It's been a while. So last year I was like, well, this audio to print version is not accurate because I tandem read almost every single physical book I read with an audio version. So the audio specific ones are literally just audiobooks that I have listened to without looking at a print copy. I have read 7 just via audio this year. And then via digital, I've read 10. But out of these 106, let me see how many I've read. Tandem, 101. Oh no. So 14. I feel like the math is wrong in here. 32. 133? Yeah, that's wrong. I have not read 133 books. I've read 123 books. So that's wrong. The math is wrong in this graph, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay. That just goes to show how many books I read in tandem. It's within 10 books, roughly, of the total amount of physical books here. But anyways, that's a little crazy. That's a little crazy. Okay, the most read authors is always a fun one. I think Erin M. Evans kind of wins that because I've read her 2 books 3 times each this year. But ignoring that, because I've only read 2 of her books this year versus how many books I read from Christopher Paolini, which was 4 different books. And then Katie Rose Poole was 3, Tasha Suri was 3, John Gwynne 3, N.K. Jemisin 3, Robert Zaxman, and it's just 3 all the way down, except for Seal Polk, I've read 2. Overall, I think this is a pretty good list. It's not as diverse as I wanted it to be, unfortunately, but that's because usually I don't focus on reading like an entire author's backlist, but maybe I should do that next year. I don't know. Anyways, this is the most read authors list, and we have kind of the graph of how many like books read is blue and then pages read is red. Apparently I have 119 reviews, 14 5 stars, 22 4.5 stars, 28 4 stars, 26 3.5 stars, etc., etc., etc. And there's no ratings of the nonfiction because I don't rate my nonfictions. And that is the breakdown for that specifically. But for my caught pile, you can see here how it spreads out throughout the year. I cannot believe I read like 19 books in June, but I think that's because I DNF'd a whole schwack of books in June. I've DNF'd 11 books this year, which is fine. I think last year I DNF'd 15. I don't know. I should have been a little bit more picky, but like I got 12 DNFs on this page and then 1 on this page. So whole bunch of DNFs this year, and most of them were in June, unfortunately. Most of them were just because I'm bored and they were poorly written. But again, you can kind of see the trajectory of my reading throughout the year on like pages, which is a little, I love that it just leans down so hard. That's, wow. Anyways, total hours listened, 517. That's a lot of hours. I love that the page count from this to Storygraph are always different because it depends on what they have as like the number of pages listed on the edition that you read. So it's always fun to try to figure that out. I've read 77 books this year that were out of series, and then 56 were just standalones. But out of all the series that I read this year, I started 40, which is less than last year because it's usually in the 50 numbers, but I started 40 different series this year. I've DNF'd 11 series. I've read 28 sequels this year, which is pretty great for me because usually I don't read a lot of sequels. Series, I've finished 6. I think in my video last year I said that I was going to read 10 books or 10 series. I was going to finish 10 series. I am hoping to at least get through a 7th because as I said, I'm currently reading Fevered Star and I'm going to read Mirrored Heavens next. So we'll see if I get to that 7th book or that 7th series finished this year. And then next year, I think I'm going to just keep the goal as the same as 10 because I think hitting and finishing 10 series next year will be great. Also, I'm going to be doing a video in the new year about like what series I'm going to focus on in 2025 because I did that for 2024 and then I went and looked at the thumbnail just now and I basically read none of the series that I wanted to focus on. But I think I'm going to be better at it this year and set out like actually realistic series that I'm gonna finish or like set out to continue and work on this year. I did a ton of rereads. I did 17 different rereads this year, which is pretty fun. Love rereading stuff. And most of those rereads were for me to then keep going with the series, right? And as you can see, my genre wheel, it looks pretty standard to my genre wheel as it usually does because the 80 fantasy books. I do wish I had more of a balance on my science fiction books, but maybe next year we'll change it up and do a little different. Yeah, as always, my biggest publishers are Tor, because I read 18 books by Tor, and then 23 by Orbit, which is fantastic. And then this other one here is self-published. The other highest number is self-published books, which is really cool, with 8. And then we have Berkeley, Henry Holt, Flatiron, and Knopf, and then Del Rey and Titan. So those were my top publishers this year, which is always very fun to look at. I love that because it's usually just a tour in orbit show, which tracks. My average rating this year, I think this is the last thing I'm going to talk about in this particular section, is 3.5, which that's a little low for me. And I think that's just because I haven't had a ton of 5 stars to yank it up into the other side. And I've had a lot of like really disappointing reads this year. So that's really interesting. The other thing I wanted to do, back to the bullet journal we go. One of the things that I did really terribly this year was actually tracking what books I hauled. I think I was very good at it until about halfway through the year. Again, that kind of coincides with me tracking anything. My love of it and my excitement of it just kind of went down in July. So hopefully in 2025 with that new book journal, I can track things a lot better. But yeah, my books hauled, I just stopped after August, stopped hauling anything. Or stopped counting when I was hauling. So I have no idea how many books I hauled this year. I don't even know what books I did haul this year, which is why I haven't done a haul in a long time on my channel, because I just don't know what I've been buying this year because I've been really bad at tracking. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the book bracket and my top 10. So we did talk about my top 10 books in 2024 in my other video, which is fantastic. So go watch that if you haven't. It's the latest video other than my reading vlog on my channel. So the book bracket for this year looks a little bit like this. So in the best book in January was Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin, which was a Green Lantern graphic novel. Crazy. The best book in February was 100,000 Kingdoms, which just eked out Chain Gang All-Stars because I had to pick between those 2 books for my favorite of the month and I was flabbergasted. Then we have March was The Shadow of What Was Lost. Then April is Empire of Exiles, March is Relics of Ruin, and June is The Sky on Fire. Then in July, it's Pillar of Ash. August, it's Out on a Limb. September, it's The Spell Shop. October is The Haunting of Velquid. November is The Lotus Empire. And December has yet to be figured out because there are still a number of days left in this year. But I can tell you right now that my favorite book is Empire of Exiles because I told you that in my other video. And that's what's going to win out the book bracket. But I will fill out the rest of this book bracket once I finish December, I guess. But that's kind of how that went. And then I also had a number of challenges in my book journal that look like this. So my 24 and 24 book bingo fucking failed so hard. I barely read any of these books. I read 5 of them, 6 of them. I read 6 of them. Okay, it's not terrible, but like I did so badly on that. And I am going to do something different with my book bingo this year. I'm not doing a physical book bingo in a book journal or anything. I have a challenge set up on Storygraph and it's going to be 25 and 25. And they are books off of my physical TBR that I am definitely going to be reading in 2025. They are all books that I am interested in now and like I could feel myself being interested in next year, which is kind of fun. I feel like this is the same mindset I had that going into making this one, but I think they're going to be books that I put on that the books that I put on that list are going to be ones that I do actually actively try to finish and work on. Because in my head, I've made it so that they're not like just books that I feel like I should be finishing. They're books that I actually want to be finishing, which I think some of these on this list were like, I feel like I should probably read these. Not that I wanted to. That makes no sense, but it's fine. And then on this page was the ABC Book Challenge, which I almost finished. The only letters that I did not have were A, G, K, Q, X, and Z. So not terrible. I'm actually really surprised on the Q one, because you know how many fantasy books start with queen of something and something, you know? So I'm really surprised on that one. I did have options for the majority of these books that were on my Storygraph challenge of this because I joined an ABC book challenge on Storygraph, which is, I'm gonna do that again, I think. If I decide to do an ABC book challenge. I don't know if I will. It was kind of fun to do at the beginning of the year, but again, I just kind of petered off at the end. I need to decide on my Storygraph book challenges. So if you let me know in the comments which ones you are going to be joining on Storygraph, let me know because I think I'm going to go look into them. I love the Storygraph challenges, not for like actively diversifying my reading because I do that anyways, but for like finding new books within these categories because I spend so long going through the Storygraph challenge and like clicking to see what people have already added to it, because a lot of people like me, I add books ahead of time, not actually like I don't add them as I read them, I add them before so that I have options to complete these prompts so that they're just there waiting for me. And it's also how I find more books that I want to read. Like that's how I go in and be like, this sounds really interesting, I've never heard of this before, I'm gonna add it to my TBR, etc, etc. So I really like Storygraph challenges for that. So let me know down below if you are starting any Storygraph challenges for 2025 because I want to know. But the one that I have made is like private to me because it's got 25 books specifically on my TBR that I want to read. So you can't join that one because it's private to me. But I'm very excited to join other Storygraph challenges and see what else other people have out there. But yeah, these two kind of like weren't the best. It's fine. It's totally fine. And then again, the 12 Recs from Friends, I failed so epically on this because I just wasn't interested in any of the books on this list after they told me about them. So it's okay. And then I have my rereads graph, which I actually need to add 2 more books into this last quarter of the year because I reread The Shadow of the Gods and The Hunger of the Gods. So in the first quarter of the year, I reread 3 books right there. Quarter 2, I reread 6. Pretty insane. Quarter 3, just the 1. And then quarter 4, again, 6 rereads. So what a stack. What a lovely thing to keep track of. And then for series, I did talk about it earlier, saying that I finished 6 series so far this year. I don't believe, yeah, I hadn't crossed off the Bloodsworn. That was the 6th one. So the ones that I did finish this year, we finished Foundryside, nice and early this year. Hall of Smoke, which is the 4 Pillars series, finished Bloodsworn, Burning Kingdoms, and the Age of Darkness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the Inheritance Cycle. 6. Aragon. I think, my friends, that is everything that I wanted to talk about this year about like finishing my reading year. I know there's like 7 days left of the year, but like I think 2024 was a pretty good reading year. It's pretty solid. Usually when I do my like favorites of the year video, that's when I get a good sense of like how my year went. Because if I have only like I did this year, if I have only a set amount of 5 stars to pick from that were like brand new reads, because I don't count rereads in my favorites videos. If I have only a set amount of ones that I can do, then I'm like, oh, okay, it wasn't like the best reading year. But the reading years where I'm like, oh, I don't know how to narrow this down, that's when it gets amazing. I guess we were kind of on the worst side this year for that aspect, but I think the amount of like 4 and 4.5 stars I had this year were fantastic. The like almost favorites video, I had to narrow it down like crazy because there were so many. So in that aspect, I think it was pretty good. But as for next year, the goals that I'm going to be going forward with, we're going to keep 120 book goal. I think that's a great book goal for me. We are going to keep the library one, which was going to the library more, I think. Yeah, use the library more. Oh, I had a bunch of specific book goals that I just didn't even look at. Oh my God. Okay. Book journal for every book. No, I did not do that. I tried so hard. Finished 10 series this year. I did not. I finished 6 so far. Read more Canadian and Indigenous authors. I don't think I tracked that. I gotta track that next year. Step outside my comfort zone every so often. So I want to explore more magical realism. I don't think I did that either. I want to genuinely enjoy what I read and explore new things through that and read at least 5 nonfiction books. Well, I didn't do that either. So none of the specific goals were really a thing this year. Reading goals that I'm going to go into next year with, which I should probably write in my brand new journal because there's a page for that. We are going to reading goals. Amazing. Number 1, read 120 books. Use library more. Number 2, hit 50-50 ratio on BIPOC books because I've been meaning to do that. And again, this year I'm coming very I'm close, but I'm not close enough, you know? What else would I like my goals to be? Read more sci-fi, which this year, 24 read 17. So more. So more than 17 sci-fi books because I love sci-fi and I want to keep exploring it. I want to use that Canadian one again. Read more Canadian books. And I'm going to say nothing else because everything else kind of just goes with my general reading goals. Diversifying my shelves is a given. I try to do that every year. I also try to diversify my genres as well, which is why when you saw my genre wheel, it was very like filled at the top with other things other than just sci-fi and fantasy. That goes for everything. I love to keep diversifying my genres and trying new things, even though fantasy and sci-fi is my girl and I'm here forever. I love to diversify. And even within the sci-fi and fantasy genres, diversifying within the subgenres is fun too, because then you get cozy and you get urban and you get epic and you get gothic and you get dark and all sorts, you know? So that's what I'm gonna do. And I think if I come up with any more reading goals, I will put them in. But this is what we've got so far, my friends, for 2025. I think, my friends, we're gonna leave this here. That was my bookish wrap up for 2025. Stay tuned for a writerly and life wrap up, which is going to be the last video of the year as my usual. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below how your reading goals went this year and if you are going to be setting any reading goals for 2025. And again, any reading challenges through Storygraph that you are joining, because I'm definitely going to go check them out. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I will catch you in my very last video of the year very, very, very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.